Missouri chapter leader for the national organization Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. I am also the mother of an 11-year-old boy. I'm here obviously to speak against Senate Bill 613. The gun violence that plagues our schools, our streets, and our communities is tragically being lost in a sea of concocted hysteria surrounding the supposed endangerment of the Second Amendment. While this tactic was a brilliant ploy on the part of the gun lobby, ploys are not what we need right now when there are 7 school and public shootings in 11 days. Ploys are not what we need. Addressing our lax gun laws and figuring out how to make them stronger is what we need. We elected you, senators, to make our state better, and you took an oath to uphold the Constitution. This bill does not uphold or solve anything, and it will only end up in court, wasting valuable state resources and time. And our state deserves better than this extreme and unconstitutional bill. We need real legislation and solutions like background checks for everyone, like the background check that is specifically mentioned in the bill that would be required of any school protection officer. Background checks are not un-American and they are not unconstitutional. And we will be doing our youth a huge disservice by lowering the conceal and carry age from 21 to 19. The rash and not yet fully developed adolescent mind is far more likely to make an impulsive decision that will only result in lives ruined. We need to protect our teenagers, not send them out into our communities with loaded weapons before they are psychologically ready for the immense responsibility. And as was already pointed out, a 19-year-old in the military, the United States military, is not the same being as a 19-year-old with 8 hours of training. As a mother, it is my right to know that when my child goes to school, that my senators are making rational and wise decisions in their leadership. Your leadership affects my child and every child in Missouri. So we ask you to terminate Senate Bill 163 because I can say with 100% certainty that come the 2014 elections, we will be taking a stand also and voting accordingly. And I thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for your testimony. I think we are going to have a couple of questions for you. I had not intentionally waited to any particular time to ask this question, but I think you're one of, if not the last people to be speaking against.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, but I don't want to talk about it. So just bear with me. Obviously, you and I don't agree about this bill. But I try. I have not perfected the method of seek first to understand and then to be understood, but I tried. And so I too am a parent. I have a 22-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 14-year-old. And one of the things that I've noticed, and I just wanted to get your perspective on this, it seems as though, and I can't say this with all certainty, but it seems as though most, if not all, of the mass shootings that we see or hear about typically, if not always, happen in what would be described or called a gun-free zone. And so when I think of my kids who, one is of the age to be finished with college, my 17-year-old has finished high school early and is in college right now, and then of course, I hope as any other parent that my 14-year-old will go to college. I share a similar concern, but I think I share it I have it for the opposite reason, and that is when I see these mass killings, typically they happen in a gun-free zone, for example, a college or something like that. So I'm just not real sure how greater or more restrictive gun laws are going to help those kinds of situations. But I guess specifically what I wanted to just kind of ask you about is whether or not your observation, number one, is similar to mine, and that is that it certainly appears as though most, if not all, of these mass shootings happen in gun-free zones. And I wondered if... Well,
I'm not speaking solely about mass shootings. I did mention the 7 shootings that have happened in 11 days, but this is really a daily epidemic, especially in Missouri, of gun violence. So whether it's a gun-free zone or a zone that allows guns, I feel there are just too many guns out there. There is no proof that more guns make our communities safer, and I think the thinking behind personally arming people and allowing people to conceal and carry, those people are not trained to react in real dangerous situations. They don't have police training. People's minds don't work the way they think they're going to work when there's a real crisis. And I just really don't feel that people walking around with fully loaded weapons is going to make our state any safer.
I would mention to you as well as anybody else in the audience, I do think it's interesting that probably most people would think on first sniff that this bill has been driven or at least endorsed by the NRA, and I've noticed a lack of any interest in this bill on the part of the NRA. The NRA had nothing to do with writing this bill. The NRA has not spoken in favor of this bill. In fact, the NRA has been, at best, lukewarm about this bill. And so, for any of the folks that might ordinarily think that something like this comes from or is driven by the NRA, I will tell you this particular bill is not. If I had to guess, I would almost guess that the NRA does not like this bill.
Smart.
But it sounded like we had a little bit of an endorsement for the NRA on my left there. But anyway, I wanted to mention that just to clear it up so that
I was aware of that.
So that those who tend to be on the right of this issue would know where the NRA stands, and so that those who tend to be on the left of this issue would know where the NRA stands. Those of you that might be to the left of this issue would be happy with the fact that the NRA doesn't take a particular liking to this bill. And those of you that might be to the right of this issue may not like it that the NRA is not engaged in this bill. But nonetheless, this is not an NRA-driven or even supported bill. This is a homegrown effort from right here in Missouri. I don't think that probably gives you any comfort, but...
Actually, I was aware of that when the bill came up last time, the NRA stance on it. And to me, this is, even though I mentioned the gun lobby, this is not a question of where the bill is coming from. It's a question about the bill.
Questions? Senator Shaw.
My job isn't to convince you, it's to figure out how you're thinking and on the basis of, on what basis you're making the arguments that you're making. So you suggested that there's, again, you're the second witness that suggested that there's a difference between the training that a military person get versus the 8 hours of training or whatever it is that concealed carry people get. And so you're opposed to allowing a 19 or a 20-year-old to conceal carry, but I don't hear you complaining about a 19 or even an 18-year-old in the military receiving training and then using weapons. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, that's okay. I expected it to be right. So then, do you believe then that a 19-year-old or an 18-year-old even can be safe handling and carrying a weapon with training?
Well, I think it's been proven because of the United States military training that yes, of course, with that type of training they can be safe.
So your opposition to allowing the concealed carry at age 19 is just that you believe the training is inadequate?
No, it's not about the training. It's about what I know to be true of a typical 19-year-old mind, as has been mentioned by both sides, actually.
But that
An untrained.
that quality of the 19-year-old mind is overcome by the training that the military provides at age 18.
The military training is quite grueling from everything I've read. So a 19-year-old's mindset in the military will be different than the mindset of a 19-year-old who has just finished high school and is going off to college.
Simply because they're in the military?
Because they have been specifically trained to handle weapons, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Other questions? Senator Silver, quite briefly.
So in my brief looking here, it appears that the state of Maine has a concealed carry age of 18. And I'm wondering, I don't know, are there other states I'm trying to find? There doesn't seem to be a clearinghouse for that information. But I guess my question is, if that's the case, have we seen a lot of murders, accidents, whatever, in the 18 to 21 category in the state of Maine or any of the other states. Because if we have empirical evidence that we can look to, then that would trump any emotional arguments that we would hear.
I can't speak to any information about Maine specifically, but there is an age range, I believe.
Because I would imagine that an 18-year-old in Maine and an 18-year-old in Missouri developmentally should be about the same.
Well, I'm speaking to Missouri. I don't, yes, I'm sure some 18 and 19-year-olds,
So I
they
guess
make
I'm
their
just wondering-
decisions for their own reasons. I do not agree with that. I don't agree with the fact that they have conceal and carry at that age.
Okay, but I'm just wondering if there's empirical data that shows that that's been harmful, that there have been, in fact, more shootings, accidents, whatever, in the age category.
There may be, but I'm not aware of them.
Okay. If anybody
But I
knows,
can look
'cause
into
I
that
honestly
and
don't
let you know.
Okay, because I honestly don't know. I just started looking it up when this became a discussion.
There
So
is,
if
there
anybody
is an
knows,
age range of, I believe it's 19 to about 22, where the rate does go up for gun violence. It's a very touchy developmental age, and I'm kind of surprised it's being overlooked. We're putting loaded weapons in the hands of very young people who can wait a few years until they're more developed to handle that incredibly huge responsibility. That's a privilege, really.
okay.
But I
guess
can't
my
speak to
only
Maine, I'm
point is
sorry.
if anyone has any empirical data that can show that the states that have a lower than 21 age have had more accidents, more, because we went through this argument in general years ago about concealed carry in the first place, that if we did this and people were carrying guns, we were going to see all of this increase in gun violence from people who were carrying concealed guns, and that wasn't really the
Is
case
that in 1999?
when the data came out.
I believe that went to a vote to the people, and they did not support the conceal and carry age being lowered, and then their opinion was cast aside and it was lowered anyway. So the people did not want that.
Okay, but that wasn't what I was saying. What I was saying was the data did not show that was a correct argument. So my question is, if we're going to be making arguments, if we have data to back it up.
I think there's
So
plenty
that's-
of gun violence data out there that there's enough. Why
Okay,
does
so
there
if
have
you
to be
can,
more?
if you can provide me the,
I'll
between
happily
the ages
do
of
that.
18 and 21 in the states that have lowered their age, there has been an increase in gun violence in those age groups. That would be compelling to me.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll just follow up on that very quickly, and not just to you, anyone who is speaking against this bill, as the author of the bill, as the chairman of this committee, I will tell you that I would be open-minded to looking at data, right? You know, we have this thing in business, we say the data is the data, and so I would open that invitation not just to yourself, but to anybody who is standing in opposition, particularly to the component within this bill that lowers the age from 21 to 19. This is specifically what I would be looking for, and would be very open-minded to consider that as we move forward and even think about amendments or whatever. And that is, if there are we know there are states that have concealed carry ages below 21, right? So if we just pick any age below 21, whether it's 18, 19, or 20, if somebody can bring me data that shows that 20-year-olds or 19-year-olds or 18-year-olds who got concealed carry permits then committed gun crimes, I would like to see that statistic. I'd like to see that data. And if in fact the data is the data and it shows empirical evidence that when we hand concealed carry permits to people who are below the age of 21, that they then go out and commit gun crimes, then I will gladly consider that as we move this bill forward. So I would invite anybody, not just you, but certainly you, anybody who may be able to get that information. And I'm not talking about information that says people of a younger age don't make good decisions. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about empirical data that says 18-year-olds who have been granted a concealed carry permit went out and did something stupid with a gun. 19-year-olds who were given a concealed carry permit went out and did something stupid with a gun. 20-year-olds, 18, 19, and 20. Show me the empirical data that says 18, 19, and 20-year-olds go out and kill people after they get a concealed carry permit. I will be the first one to consider amending this bill and keeping it at 21. but I want empirical data. I don't want feelings. I don't want studies that have been done that show or even prove that teenagers are stupid. We all know that teenagers are stupid. We're not arguing whether or not teenagers are stupid. What we're talking about is, do teenagers go and legally get a concealed carry permit and then go kill somebody? Bring me that data, and I'll bet you I'll be the one to change this bill. Any other questions?
No, to speak on. Just first and foremost, I'm very flustered right now, just listening to it all. But let me just thank you for coming forward. Because what happens, and many times, the individuals that's pushing the right to carry, they don't really understand what happens in my community, okay? In the inner cities, in the hearts of North St. Louis. We're not hunting animals, we're hunting people. Not me, but the people with guns, okay? So basically what they're saying now is that it's okay for a 19-year-old who's living below the poverty level, who may get frustrated and upset by the fact that they cannot survive, they can now go legally get a gun at 19 and begin to use that gun to commit crimes. But guess what? Now, if they get caught with that gun after a murder, after a robbery, they don't get charged for that gun anymore. They just get charged for the robbery. When in other cases, if a kid was caught with a gun that was not legal or illegal, that was illegal, then they would get caught with, they would be charged with robbery, first degree, and even sometimes attempt to murder. Okay? That's 30, 40 years. So now these kids, they can go and get a legal gun and go commit a crime. And they're not even getting charged with a gun. They're not getting a gun charge because now, guess what? It's legal. And I just don't think that's right. I think that we're on the wrong page of this book here. We're not dealing with the issues that we need to be dealing with before us, like the background check, the mental illness, how are we going to deal with the mental illness aspect of the mass murders. We have kids in North St. Louis, they're killing each other each and every day. The murder rate is at its all-time high, okay? We're the second in the country when it comes to murder by way of guns, okay? And I just think that we're not dealing with the right issues here. And it's really unfortunate, and I don't want to take guns away from anyone. But I think if we want to deal with the issue of gun control and allowing people to have guns, we need to do it together. It needs to be an issue where we're dealing with both sides of the coin, not just one side. But I just want to thank you for standing up and speaking a truth, to power. And a lot of times we don't get that. And you're on the right page. Unfortunately, many of us are not, but you are.
May I say one more thing?
Certainly. Any other questions for the witness? And let me just, as the chair of this committee, obviously I think those of you who have taken time to speak against the bill know that we don't necessarily agree about this, but I do want you to know as the chairman and the author that I very much appreciate you being here today. I appreciate you participating in the process that hopefully educates other people. And just like I said before, if you bring the empirical data that shows that 18, 19, and 20-year-olds who go and get a concealed carry permit and commit gun crimes, I will say it before you and all the audience here, I'll change it. And did you have a closing comment? It doesn't mean
I just wanted
but since we picked on you
I'm
so
sorry,
much,
it's your 18 and 19 works right into what I want to say, that when you said that teenagers are stupid and we all laughed because we have them or we know them or we were one, why would we put a loaded weapon in their hands?
Sure. And
That's
the
what we
rule I
think.
said before is that you can't ask questions of the
I
committee
know, I'm
members,
sorry,
but
I wasn't
I'll answer
asking you.
them.
It was
I'll answer
rhetorical.
them. And that is that, sure, that I won't deny that's a valid point, but if they're just hell-bent on doing something, we should probably take baseball bats, knives. We probably shouldn't let them drive because a car is a lethal weapon. Anyway, we could probably go on and on all day about this. But I do appreciate you being here, and thank you for your testimony. Next person to speak in favor, sir, do you have a witness?